Hey, how's it going? Cody here from Shrimp Plants. Just want to show you how to set up a new tank. So let's do it.
Alright, so we're going to get started here with the substrate. Going to go ahead and use Carib C Eco Complete or Eco Planted. This does require no rinsing because it already contains beneficial bacteria. So it's basically just cut and dump. Now I'm going to be using 2 pounds per gallon here to get me roughly 3 inches of substrate. So this 20-pound bag, 10-gallon tank, 1 bag per tank. Pretty straightforward there. Since this doesn't require rinsing, it's just cut and dump. So we're going to go ahead and pour it all out. Now you'd have to be careful. Most substrates do require rinsing because they have a lot of dust particulates, etc. So you want to go ahead and sift those out in a larger container and kind of rinse them out maybe 2 or 3 times and let it all get cleared out before it settles. And then you want to move it to another container or go ahead and move it into the tank after that. Now I am going to be setting up 2 tanks here, just doing an expansion, adding a rack, but I figured I might as well record it and show you how to do it, whether it's your first shrimp tank or you have several tanks and you just want another little bit of information on how you do it. Now I do like the Eco Complete just because it's all crushed lava rock, so it's very porous. Shrimp seem to love it. It houses a lot of beneficial bacteria and also houses a lot of nutrients for all these plants to thrive. Once I've got it all dumped, go ahead and get my substrate tool, sift it all around. Now, I'm not trying to get anything perfect here, just trying to get a rough estimate of what I want. Now, typically, if this is going to be a show tank or something that I want people to look at, I'm going to slant it from one direction to another, kind of give it a piece of depth there on top of that. But for this instance, I'm just going to be doing a flat substrate. Nothing crazy. Now, not only does this flatten it out, but it also helps sift some of those smaller particles down to the lower end, which will be better and have the larger ones up top. Here's the tool that I'm using. Just going to go ahead and even out the other side real quick. Alright, now that that's all done, we're going to go to our nutrient tabs. Today I'm going to be using Nylock G Thrive caps, my preferred brand of the nutrient capsules here. Now these do contain a significant amount of air, so I do pinch them before I put them in the substrate. I just kind of push them as far down as possible. Relatively evenly spaced, not exactly sure where I want to plant things right now, so just kind of moving everything around. Going to go for almost a checkered pattern. Kind of 2 1 2 1 all the way up to the front, just to get a nice even distribution of those nutrients. Just kind of wiggle them down. You want them to get as far as possible without creeping back up within that substrate, and then just brushing it all back on top there. Alright, now I gotta get my hardscape ready. Today I'm just gonna use some Sayru stone and some cholla wood. Since I've got smaller hardscape, I don't really need to plant around it, and I know exactly what I'm gonna do with it. I'm gonna go ahead and start planting. Got some dwarf sage here. Just kind of drive it in diagonally, get it a little deep so the roots have some room to grab onto, and then kind of twist back and forth to get it out, and brush a little bit back on top. Fill in all those little gaps, make sure it's got a nice tight hold. And it's pretty much just rinse and repeat from there. Now this is a self-propagating plant. It's going to shoot out runners, expand on its own, so I like to space it out a little bit. And I'm not doing anything crazy here, no high-tech plants, it's all going to be low-tech, easy plants. You know, I am mostly helping the beginner here, so it's nice to be able to use these easy plants that kind of work on their own and just explode with minimal assistance as long as you've got everything ready to go for 'em. Alrighty, it's starting to look alive. Gonna go ahead and add a little bit of anacaris here, back in this back corner. It's gonna grow a little taller, split out on its own. It'll start sending roots down from about mid to halfway up. At that point, feel free to cut those. You can replant those as well. Just kind of bunch up those free roots that are coming down. Anywhere you cut it, it's gonna go ahead and separate out and grow 2 new stems. Very quick, easy beginner plant. Gonna go ahead and add the hardscape in here. Now, I did go ahead and pre-boil my cholla wood. I didn't want to boil it for too long because I like the tannins in my water. I find them to be beneficial, but I didn't want to remove any possible parasites or anything like that. That being said, this is new cholla wood, so it hasn't been sank yet. Kind of drive it into the substrate a little bit and then set the stone right on top to hold it down, just to begin with. In a few weeks, it'll be able to hold itself down, and I'll be able to move it around wherever I want, if I so choose. Pretty simple and straightforward. Now we're going to be adding some Java moss, another very easy beginner plant. Doesn't require much, will grow on and cling to just about anything you hook it to. You can either wrap it around something with cotton string, fishing line, or you can just tuck it underneath just like I'm doing here. And in just a few short weeks, that'll be about softball size. Okay, now it's time to add the water. Make sure you add your dechlorinator and dechloramine. Do not want those getting in the water. Now, if this is a new tank, which I am doing here, or you're doing either a top off or a water change, with shrimp, you really want to make sure that you don't get any copper in the water. My lines are copper, my water heater's copper, so I run cold water, run it for a little bit, and then I stick the bucket underneath the water and let it fill all the way up. I usually do this a few hours in advance and let the water heat itself to room temperature before I add it to the tank, just so there's not too much temperature fluctuation there, and make sure I get as healthy water as I possibly can. I'm on hard water, and Neocaridina absolutely love hard water, so I don't need to add any extra hardness supplements to my water. No KH and GH plus, anything like that, so that's kind of nice. I am using a plate here to disperse the water movement, that way it doesn't throw around everything I've just done and ruin all my hard work. This is about the time that I add any liquid fertilizer that I want to use. Today I'm going to be using API Leaf Zone. So I dose this according to instructions. On a new tank I just do 1 simple dose, and then on a shrimp tank I typically do about a half dose on my water changes. Now I do weekly 10% water changes on all my shrimp tanks. So for 10 gallons it's going to be 5 milliliters here. And then just going to go ahead and top the tank off here. This allows that fertilizer to really get mixed in, so I like to use it during the process. Same thing with, you know, when I'm adding it during a water change or a top off, I go ahead and put it in the water that I'm going to be adding. And I typically do that before I pour the water into the bucket. And that way it's really well mixed in. And now the tank is successfully flooded. Just a few more steps left. Okay, gonna go ahead and set up the airline tubing here. So I have an airline check valve. The easiest way to test which way these works is just to blow on it. If the air goes through, that's the direction you want to be facing towards the filter. Take the desired length, go ahead and snip it off. Now since I am setting up 2 tanks, I'm going to be using a T connector here to kind of split that off. I'm going to make sure these fittings are secure. The reason we use that check valve is just to make sure that no water travels up the line and back into the pump. Don't want any leaks, that would not be good. I'm going to go ahead and roughly estimate my desired length here. Since my tanks are symmetrically placed according to where this line will be, I'm going to go ahead and cut 2 similar length pieces here. Perfect. Now let's check out that filter. We're going to be using a simple sponge filter. Nothing crazy, just a standard one here. So the airline tubing connects to that little nozzle there at the bottom. And as the air travels through that, it's going to be pushed down and then go up the pipe. Now the water is going to be sucked in through the sponges, very fine foam mesh. And then as the air is pulled up, it's going to pull the water through that sponges, up the pipe, and out the end. So there's little holes underneath the sponges, allow the water to travel through. Very fine mesh, like I said, so a lot of beneficial bacteria can grow on this. Little shrimplets will feed, as well as the adults. And now, since this is a new tank, I'm going to go ahead and jumpstart the cycle, so we don't need that. I'm going to use a sponge from another tank that I've had for quite some time. I'm going to go ahead and pop it on. Now the new sponge is full of air, while the used one is full of water. So we need to get all that air out of the sponge just to make sure it works properly. And by using pre-cycled media, I am able to go ahead and put livestock in right away. So that's very, very easy. If you don't have that option, you don't necessarily need to cycle completely on a shrimp tank if it's going to be shrimp only, just because shrimp have almost a negligible bioload, if not a negative one. So the impact they'll have on your water parameters is going to be very minimal. Basically, you just need to monitor all of your parameters, make sure everything's totally fine. I've done things like this for about 20 tanks, and everything seems to be perfectly fine now. And there we go, hooked up and running. Okay, now Neocaridina definitely don't necessarily need a heater. I prefer to use one, just keep things stable. You know, shrimp do like consistency. This specific heater that I'm using comes with a thermometer. Do need to take a little plastic piece out of the back there. Now, I do keep this room at about 70-71 degrees anyway, so it's definitely not necessary for me to use a heater. I just like to make sure that everything's perfect for them. And that water is room temperature right now. Let's go ahead and check out the heater we got here. I am using a 50-watt heater. Don't need a huge one, just 10-gallon tank. Fully submersible, so it doesn't need to be completely under the water. Just gonna go ahead and clip on these suction cups here. I prefer to keep mine a little higher to keep them away from that heating element. If it does have a sticker on it, you do want to remove those quality control stickers as well. Now I'm gonna be setting it about 73, 74 degrees. And I like to keep my heaters close to my filters, just keep that airflow traveling next to the heater. Alright, been set up for a little while now, heating the tank up, and temperature's looking good. Now we just need a light and shrimp. Good luck!